Hello everyone, I am Ewan McQuaid and welcome to my review of The Conjuring Last Rites. That's correct, we are talking about the final installment of the Conjuring franchise, the fourth Conjuring named film. It is here. I've been pretty hyped for this. I am a big Conjuring fan and I went into this with sort of middling expectations because I have fortunately been able to see all three Conjurings in cinema at Cineworld back to back. So I was coming fresh off the James Wan ones, The Devil Made Me Do It, straight into Last Rites, and we'll dive into that in just a little moment. But with that tease, please hit subscribe. This is my first movie review on this channel. Hopefully there's going to be more. Hopefully you like seeing my face. And yeah, let's dive into The Conjuring Last Rites. So The Last Rites is directed by Michael Chaves, starring Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, Mia Tomlinson and Ben Hardy. The Warrens united to fight another supernatural threat. And this is following on from some of the stuff that happened in The Devil Made Me Do It. Brief spoilers for that film. It focuses on Ed Warren's heart attack and some of the sort of repercussions of the ghouliness that happened in that previous film, but also taking a spotlight to Judy Warren, the daughter of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and focusing on that family drama. It's directed by Michael Chaves. Michael Chaves has directed a lot of films in the Conjuring franchise. He directed The Devil Made Me Do It. He directed The Nun 2. He directed The Curse of La Llorona. I think that's how you pronounce it. So he's got a hand in the Conjuring franchise. He has sort of been following on from what James Wan established with that original film and its sequel. And here we have the final installment. So overall thoughts on The Conjuring Last Rites. I think it is very enjoyable. If you are a fan of the Conjuring franchise, this has pretty much everything you want. It has good scares, it has a continuation of the story for the Warrens, it has everything you could want, all of that good fan service in a final installment. Is it the smoothest ride? No, it's a little bit clunky, it's a little bit cumbersome with some of its dialogue and some of its plot structuring, but as an experience, I really enjoyed it. So the story of The Conjuring Last Rites focuses on Ed and Lorraine Warren in retirement. They have put their demon hunting behind them and they are off doing their own thing. Then there's a supernatural occurrence with Judy Warren and a family in Pennsylvania. The Smurl family, which are a real family. They have a big backstory with the Warrens. I don't know how accurate it is. I don't think it's very accurate whatsoever. But it's creative license and stuff like that, and they are being haunted in this house by some sort of demon / spiritual entity. That sounds like a standard Conjuring story, and for the most part it is, but I enjoyed this way more than The Devil Made Me Do It. The Devil Made Me Do It, watching it recently, I thought was boring and not scary. I liked the elements that it added in, like the trial and like the ideas that you can put forward of, can you use demonic possession as a way to sort of, not necessarily avoid, but can it be a case for defending yourself in a murder trial? I don't think they went into that stuff enough, but here it's much more the classic formula. It's a spooky house with creaking doors, with very disturbing imagery, and I think that works to the benefit of the film. Taking the film back to its roots really helped with just sort of getting back into that world, because the third film really didn't. It sort of took us out. It was way more action oriented. I'm thinking about this bit where Ed Warren's sliding like an action hero, grabbing Lorraine Warren. You don't get a lot of that stuff. It's a lot more toned down, peeled back, and that benefits it greatly. I think there are some really effective scares here. I'm going to talk about spoilers at the end, but there are some very effective, not just jump scares, but there are moments of tension that are built up, not to the extent that they were in The Conjuring 1 and 2, but there are some bits that I was like, this is classic Conjuring. This is hitting me exactly where I want it to. It's building that tension. It's like a tiny little violin that's just getting louder and then ultimately leads to nothing. It just builds your heart rate, builds that tension, and I really enjoyed that element of it. And it's something that I thought was lost. I thought it was something that wouldn't be able to be recaptured without the magic of James Wan. But Michael Chaves, to his credit, seems like he took on board feedback from the last film and his previous spin-offs and sort of followed James Wan and his directing style more effectively here. It's not just a generic jump scare fest. One of the highlights of this film is the performances. I think the performances in this film are top notch. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are incredible as Ed and Lorraine Warren. I think their connection is undeniable. They have amazing chemistry. They feel like an authentic couple. You feel that love for one another and the fear that, Lorraine has for Ed's heart, the fear that Ed has for the gift, the clairvoyancy that Lorraine Warren has as well. You feel that connection, and you also feel it with their daughter. Mia Tomlinson, I think, is really, really good as Judy Warren, and she gets some of the best scares in the film as well. She gets some of the best moments, and I think she was really, really well cast. And Ben Hardy as well. I think Ben Hardy's really underrated. EastEnders boy from here in the UK. He was in X-Men as well. He was a character that I thought was going to be a bit annoying, but ultimately, when you sort of learn a bit more about him, you get that affection. As soon as sort of he gets the approval from Ed Warren, you're like, okay, we're on board with you. Please don't be a dick. Please don't turn into a demon or something like that. And I think the characters were one of the most effective moments and one of the most effective elements of this film. So we talked about the good scares. We've talked about the good cast. In terms of the negatives of this film, I think it's the pacing. This film is 2 hours and 10 minutes long. Way too long. Absolutely way too long. What it feels like to me, and I'll dive into a little bit of this with spoilers at the end, it feels to me like you had two scripts. I'm not going to say what scripts they are, but they were smashed together to create a sort of finale for the entire Conjuring universe. And the way it's sort of put together is a little bit clunky and a little bit not underwhelming, but it's baggage. It's extra baggage for the film to deal with that it doesn't necessarily need to deal with. You could have cut those entire bits out of the film or made two completely separate films, 90-minute runtime. It would have been pitch perfect. That is easily the biggest fault of the film, and that is something that I think could have been avoided with a few more read-throughs, a few more drafts of the script, maybe. Something I do think is an issue as well is at least one use of the CGI. The CGI in this film is minimal from what I can tell, but there's one bit where there is something very CGI that happens and it is laughable. I found it laughable. It wasn't for me. If you're scared of that thing, then that is something that maybe will frighten you, but the CGI always takes me out of horror films. It really does. And I wasn't on board for it when it got to that. I think the last act of this film is where the wheels do come off a little bit. I was really enjoying the family drama and the spiritual stuff that's going on in the house in Pennsylvania. But when it comes to that last act and all the shit hits the fan, you've got stuff exploding, roofs crashing, everything going wild. That is where it sort of fell apart for me because it's too big for the contained set piece that it is, because it's in such a small house and they're trying to add so much spectacle to it that it falls apart at the end and it goes into a little bit of generic horror, which I think it was avoiding for the most part up until that point, because there's some very effective jump scares and creepy moments, like I said. But when it gets to that last act, that is where the wheels come off, and it's like, if you're not on board for crazy batshit stuff in your Conjuring films, which I'm not necessarily opposed to, but the first two Conjurings didn't really have that. They didn't have massive crazy endings. They had a big exorcism, and they had the showdown with Valak at the end of Conjuring 2, which was, getting there, but not to the sort of extent that I found in Last Rites. But that being said, the question you're probably here for: is this a satisfying end to the Conjuring series? I think if you have been a Conjuring fan through and through, like myself, I think this offers some sort of resolution for you and some sort of closing chapter to the Conjuring series that I think we have lacked in horror franchises, because horror franchises just always get brought back. And I think there was a very interesting, unique ending, one that tugged on the heartstrings, and I was like, I'm here for this. I'm here for these two, the Ed and Lorraine story to come to a close. And yeah, overall, Conjuring Last Rites I thought was an enjoyable time at the theatre. I would highly recommend you go and see it in cinema. Support your movie theatres. Please don't wait for this to come out on streaming, because it will not be as scary if you watch it at home. So overall, I would give it 3.5 out of 5. I had a very fun time with it. Not the best horror film of the year. You've obviously got Bring Her Back, Sinners, 28 years later. There's so many great horror films that have come out, but I think it's a solid end for the Conjuring series. Now, we're going to talk about spoilers. We're going to talk about spoilers in this same video. Yeah, let's talk about some of those scares. I think there are some fantastic scares in this film. The big one that really hit me is the television screen when one of the lead characters, one of the Smurl family, I can't remember the daughter's name, is sort of freeze framing a VHS, trying to find out who blew out this candle on the TV that's been filmed by her father. And she freezes it, and you see the face of the demon blowing out the candles as well. That bit sent a shiver down my spine. It's then followed up by a very good misdirection, because if you've seen the trailer, you would see the jump scare where the guy comes out, appears in the corner of the room. Here, it doesn't do that. Instead, he runs out, and it was like a really good misdirect. I love when trailers do that. There was a really good jump scare with a demon appearing at the foot of the bed of the House of Pennsylvania. And yeah, there was just some really, really good creepy moments and built up tension. My favourite scene in the entire film was towards the beginning, when you have the mother of the Smurl family. She's sort of in the basement doing some washing, and she sees a silhouette of a guy in the shadows, and then it sort of pans round, turns round, she switches the light on, and it's a poster. I thought that was really effective and sent a shiver down my spine. As for some of the stuff that didn't land, the Annabelle stuff, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to sort of mashing two things together that don't necessarily fit. It felt like they had a script for an Annabelle 4 and a Conjuring 4, and they're like, you know what, let's just merge all these together, let's no one will care. And they kind of included that just to kind of get Annabelle in there, and you have the big CGI Annabelle, which is not good in the slightest. I thought that bit was really weak. And the ending overall, the Conjuring films have had really weird endings anyway, where they sort of wrap up really quick. I didn't hate it, but the actual wrapping up of the demons sort of being through using the rhyme that Judy had got from Lorraine and sort of just becoming aware of it, I thought that was a little bit weak. But then you've got all the crazy stuff. You've got Tony trapped under a mirror, you've got Patrick Wilson's heart giving out, you've got so much stuff going on. They didn't take me out. I was like, okay, this is Conjuring nonsense. I'm here for it. The bit that made me like barely laugh was the very end, when they have the wedding of Tony and Judy, and they have all of the families from the previous films. You have the family from the first Conjuring, from the Enfield haunting, and The Devil Made Me Do It at Judy's wedding. I'm like, why the fuck would they be there? Like, if I'd had an encounter with the likes that these people have had with Ed and Lorraine Warren, I would stay the hell away from them. And why would they get invited to not their wedding, their daughter's wedding? It was funny. James Wan in the background as well was really funny. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the cheesiness of the ending. You got the sort of passing of the torch that maybe we're going to get Judy and Tony sort of going on to be the Warrens, I guess. And sort of that passing of the torch when he gives the key to Tony at the end, and you have the dance at the wedding when they see, when Lorraine sees the future of her and Ed and the life that they're going to have writing the book and everything like that. I thought it was really sweet. It was cheesy, corny, but I enjoyed it. It was a really satisfying end to the story. Something I didn't touch on was, I guess, Judy as a whole. She has supernatural powers, and that was sort of created, I guess, by the flashback at the beginning when you see a younger Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're investigating this spooky mirror, and it causes a premature birth of Judy, and then Judy comes back to life. That it was a wild way to start off the film, and I wasn't necessarily. I think it makes me ask more questions than necessarily I want to, particularly about like how was none of this referenced in the previous films. So I feel like it was added in just to add a bit of spice, but I also feel like that was something that was probably going to be done in an Annabelle 4. They were going to have Annabelle 4 maybe with Judy involved, because she's so tied up. All of her spooks seem to come from the Annabelle doll. And yeah, that's where it feels like it was merged. That's where it feels like it was merged together. Overall, though, I think it's a terrific time. I think you'll enjoy yourself if you're a fan of the Conjuring franchise. I think it's the third best Conjuring film. I think it's way better than The Devil Made Me Do It. I think it's superior to like The Nun, the Annabelle. The only Annabelle that probably comes close to that, Annabelle 2, because Annabelle 2 I think is the best. And it doesn't come close to touching the original Conjuring or Conjuring 2 either. So bear that in mind if you're a big fan. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Have you seen The Conjuring Last Rites? Are you going to? Let me know and I'll try to apply to every single one of them. Thank you all ever so much for your support and have a nice day.